Speaking of there not being any choice in the election, the Libertarian Party nominated Gary Johnson. And Gary Johnson chose as his running mate Bill Weld, who is a longtime kind of liberal governor. So, in the Libertarian Party nomination, the presidential candidate doesn't actually get to pick who their VP is. Both are decided by delegates, basically. But Johnson basically told the Libertarian Party, you need to vote for Bill Weld if we want to get campaign donations, if we want to be able to get our message out there, et cetera, et cetera. And, Johnson's really big on this. The Libertarian Party needs to get their message out there. Their main thing right now is to get into the national debates, which I agree would be a big thing for the Libertarian Party, is to get in the national debates. You need to poll at 15%.
Yeah, just forcing that recognition, even if nothing comes of it, would be a big help for the party.
Yeah. The problem is, I think Johnson, out of all the candidates that were running for the Libertarian Party nomination for president, Johnson is the absolute worst one to tell people who've never heard of libertarianism or don't know what libertarianism is, what it is. Every time he's asked, what is libertarianism, his response is, well, libertarians are fiscally conservative and socially liberal. And they take some things from the Republicans and some things from the Democrats, and that's supposed to be like a good selling point. I think that's a terrible selling point. That's like the worst possible thing you can tell somebody who's fed up with the Republicans and the Democrats, is that, well, we take some stuff from both parties and we just mishmash it together. Is there any principle behind this?
How is that any different from, say, a moderate?
Yeah, how is that any different from a moderate? Why would we vote libertarian when Gary Johnson makes it sound like libertarians are just moderates? They're not. They're not moderates whatsoever. The Libertarian Party, sorry, I gotta adjust my headphones. The Libertarian Party claims to be the party of principle, and yet they nominate this guy who has absolutely no idea what the founding principles of the Libertarian Party are. The principle of the Libertarian Party, the primary one, is the non-aggression principle. Libertarians believe it is wrong to initiate force against someone else, which is why we take the positions we do, which is why we don't think, conservative bakers should be forced to bake gay wedding cakes and things like that, because it's wrong to initiate force against other people. You do have the freedom of association. That's why we're against taxation. That's why we're against government schools, et cetera, because all of that is based on the initiation of force. Government is based on the initiation of force. So that is where our political opinions, that's how our political opinions are informed, is based on that principle. That core principle of libertarianism is the non-aggression principle. So I think if you want to get people involved and actually care about the Libertarian Party and not just immediately dismiss it, then you need to tell people, you need to let people know that the Libertarian Party is the party of principle, because as we all know, the Republicans and the Democrats are not parties of principle. They've changed, they've completely changed all around, in the past 200 years. You can look at Teddy Roosevelt compared to what we have now, and FDR, he was a Democrat, whereas Hoover, who all of Roosevelt's policies basically came from Hoover. He was a Republican. There's no fundamental difference between these two parties, and they do not seem to have any guiding principle where you can look at their policies from an aerial view and just say, yeah, that makes total sense. I think the small L libertarian positions are the only set of political principles that make any sense. And the Libertarian Party platform, which Gary Johnson doesn't even espouse, but if he did, he's doing a terrible, terrible job of getting it across to people. I think he's the worst possible candidate. I think, honestly, if he gets into the national debates, he can only hurt libertarians going forward.
Johnson, I believe he's been nominated several times before now.
Yes.
I do find it kind of unfortunate that we often criticize people for flip-flopping between Democrats and Republicans, expecting a different outcome, and yet here the Libertarian Party is nominating the same candidate over and over again, expecting a different outcome.
Right. And I think they've got a point in that this coming election is the best chance that the Libertarian Party has ever had in history, because the unfavorability ratings of both the leading candidates are so ridiculously high that almost the majority of Americans don't like either of the leading candidates. And so this is the absolute best time for a third-party candidate to come in, I would say, in modern history. And yet, we elect Johnson, who does a terrible job of espousing Libertarian Party principles, in Libertarian Party and voluntarist principles in general. And we expect him to be able to sway people from their 3x5 card of allowable opinion here, which is between the Democrats and the Republicans. He expects people to actually change their mindset and vote for a third party based on what he has to say, which is, we are fiscally conservative and socially liberal. If I had no idea about the Libertarian Party principles at all, that would not convince me. I would just say, well, what's the difference between you and Bill Clinton?
I do hope that even though Johnson may not be the best espouser of libertarianism, maybe enough word will get out that people will at least bother to look it up on Wikipedia and see the general definition that much more ably explains what libertarianism is.
The Libertarian Party pledge is this: I hereby certify that I do not believe in or advocate the initiation of force as a means of achieving political or social goals. That's the Libertarian Party pledge. And I think if Johnson said that on stage, people would be like, oh yeah, well that makes sense. I mean, not very many people will say, no, I believe in the initiation of force. So I think when you get people from that starting point, it's a lot more helpful. So I think if Johnson does take the debate stage, the best we can hope for is that people start Googling libertarians and find people who are better libertarians than he is. Especially with his running mate, Bill Weld, who's not a libertarian at all. He even admitted to never having read any libertarian literature before getting asked by Johnson to be the running mate.
Perhaps in an effort to appeal to voters, they're destroying the very thing that makes the Libertarian Party different from the other parties.
Yes, I agree 100% with that. A couple things with Johnson. I thought it was funny in the Libertarian Debates. Johnson got booed because when they asked about should government license drivers, all the other candidates on stage said no. And then Johnson said, well, I think the government should license drivers. And I am glad that the Libertarian debates are nothing like the Republican and Democrat debates, where there's like this tiny little sliver of allowable opinion. Whereas in the Libertarian debates, they openly discuss, getting rid of government marriage licenses, not licensing drivers, eliminating the income tax. All of that stuff is openly and reasonably discussed, unlike the other debates.
Yeah, when your main focus is on personal freedom, it's amazing what a variety of opinions you can have on different topics.
I think I'm probably glad that people don't start by watching the Libertarian debates. If people get into libertarianism by finding, say, Johnson on the national debate stage, that's probably a better starting point than just watching the Libertarian debates and being a statist. Because you're going to watch this and think they're completely crazy. They're going to eliminate the income tax. They're not going to build any roads. I mean...
But my roads, Callan!
There's not going to be any schools. People are going to starve in the streets. It's going to be terrible. One other thing I wanted to mention about Johnson is We still don't know exactly what kind of person Johnson is. One thing that's almost certainly going to be brought up and is going to hurt him is that Austin Peterson, which was Johnson's main competitor, I think Peterson was number 2. I think McAfee was number 3. I don't remember exactly, but they were the 3 leading candidates. Peterson, after Johnson won, Peterson gave Johnson an antique gun out of a show of good faith, and then Johnson threw it in the garbage at the convention. And then someone fished it out of the trash and gave it back to Austin Peterson. So I don't know how good Johnson is at politics, but that's just something you don't do. Like, that's going to hurt you if people think that you're a dick, because you threw away this present that your competitor gave to you at the convention in full view of everybody.
Yeah, at least like take it home or put it in your car trunk before getting rid of it.
No. And not only that, but the Johnson campaign actually asked the Peterson guys to buy it back from them. They offered them $500 or $600 to buy the antique gun back. And it was hush money because they wanted the Peterson campaign to not talk about what happened. So yeah, that's terrible. I mean, that's not a big scandal, but it does make people question how I don't know how Johnson might act if he were given more power than just being the Libertarian nominee.
We'll see what comes up in the news.
Yeah, we will. If he does make a splash, like if he does do okay, and if he does get in the national debates, that'll be a milestone. We get, our Libertarian candidate in the national debates, even though he's definitely not our favored or favorite candidate. The media will attack him. Of course, they may just do what they did with Ron Paul and just kind of ignore that he exists, because that's a lot easier with a third party than it is with a Democrat or a Republican. With Donald Trump, they just attack Donald Trump ceaselessly. But with Gary Johnson, I would imagine they'd probably take a different approach. I would say they'd probably just kind of pretend he doesn't exist. That'd probably be the better way to go about things.
Matter of time before they summon the army in. I'm probably on the FBI's most wanted list. I'm probably gonna end up hung like an ornament. I'm on a life